Hello, I'm Jade, and welcome to La Quinta Book Fest Revisited. Since we were unable to host BookFest 2021 here at the library, we thought we'd reconnect with previous panelists to see what they've been up to and talk about their latest projects. I spoke with Sarah Kuhn about what she's been watching lately and the two books she has coming out in 2021. Hollywood Heroine, the fifth book in her Heroine Complex series, which features amazing Asian American superheroines, will be coming out later in July, and her latest YA book, From Little Tokyo with Love, a reinvention of the modern fairy tale, will be released in May. I really hope you'll enjoy this segment of BookFest Revisited. So, Sarah, how have you been?
I'm okay. I'm riding out the pandemic as we all are, so it's certainly an interesting time, but overall, I'm okay.
Yes, good. So before we get to your books, tell me what's inspired you lately, or what have you been reading and watching and just loving?
Oh my goodness. So whenever I get this question, I forget that I have consumed literally any media. I don't remember what books are. There are a few things that spring to mind. I mean, TV wise, like a lot of the YA community, I fell very deeply in love with Julie and the Phantoms on Netflix. It is a wonderful show.
Nice.
That is just very pure and kind and wholesome. And if you don't know what it's about, it's basically this teenage girl who is grieving her mother, who is recently passed away. And then she ends up making some new friends in the form of these guys who are the ghosts of kind of like a 90s like indie boy band.
Oh, okay.
And they end up making some literally beautiful music together.
Nice.
And it's just lovely. I recommend it, especially during this time. And then reading wise, I've read quite a few good things lately. I love Gloria Chow. She's a wonderful YA writer, fellow Asian American YA writer, and she writes hilarious, very poignant rom-coms. And her most recent one is called Rent a Boyfriend. And it's about this girl, Asian American girl, who basically to sort of like get her parents to stop like trying to set her up with family friends and like bother her about why she doesn't have a boyfriend and why she, she's not on the marriage track. She hires this guy from a service that like rents out, boyfriends, girlfriends, like, people that can pretend that they are your significant other, that your parents will stop bothering you.
Oh, nice.
Which I feel like for a lot of Asian Americans might be pretty relatable. So that's another very wholesome, joyful work that I recommend for the moment.
Nice. Speaking of wholesome, I have to say, I Love You So Much. It was probably one of my favorite books last year that I read.
Oh, thank you.
It was just so good, and you just get so immersed in the world, and I couldn't get enough of it. I have a little, I got one of those book bundles that I think you had at one point.
Yes,
so like Mochi and the Tanuki knows all in the cup.
yeah, that was so very adorably put together.
Yeah, I love it so much. But now let's talk about, I love this. I just love this series so much. I've been devouring it. Your Heroine Complex series.
Yeah.
They're just, it's so fun to see Asian superheroes. It just like makes everything so much better. And I just love how real they are. The characters just seem so relatable, and you can see yourself in, whether Asian or not, you can see yourself in whatever they're going through, good or bad. And I just cannot get enough, and I'm so excited for your next book in the series. But I'm almost done with this one, and it's so good. I just hit like a super turning point. I was at lunch and I was just like, what's going on? I'm so excited.
Thank you so much.
So how did this series start? Did you have like the superhero angle to start with, or did you have more like Evie and Aveda first, and then it kind of blossomed into the superhero track?
I guess it was a little bit of both. I'm a pretty like character-based writer. I kind of have to have who the sort of main person is before I can proceed. And in this case, I mean, I was also inspired by a lot of the tropes and a lot of the media I grew up consuming. So I've always been a big superhero fan. I've always been a huge comic book fan.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've always been obsessed with is kind of the mundane side of superheroing, you know, like one of my favorite X-Men stories, which I've mentioned a lot in relation to the series, is an issue called Ladies' Night, where it was about the female X-Men like going to the mall, and that's actually where they first encounter Jubilee. And so that's kind of like the adventure part, but a lot of the story of that is them like, you know, going, getting their hair done and like shopping and bonding and arguing. And so I always like those sort of little slices of life that are in between the main adventure. And I wanted to explore that more. And I just thought, like, you know, at the time there were a lot of urban fantasy series, which usually are like, you know, badass women in leather pants and swords doing awesome things. And I love that. And I just had this thought of like, you know, who is the sidekick to that person? Like, because if you were sort of getting into trouble and going on these adventures and having these epic battles as part of your job, like your daily life, surely you need someone to clean up after you. You need someone to take those other pants to the dry cleaners. You need someone to, like, you know, keep up all your social media and stuff. So I thought, like, who's the person behind the scenes? Like, who's the person who has to do all of that? And that's how I kind of came up with Evie, who is the main character of the first book and the fourth book. And, you know, then of course it was like, well, who's this person that she is the assistant to? And I tried to come up with, you know, the biggest diva possible, and that's why I got Aveda Jupiter. But what I really loved about them, and what I think kind of made it come to life, was that they have this very, you know, long-running, not entirely healthy friendship. And it goes through a lot of stages in the series. I think by the time we get to Haunted, which you said you're reading right now, it's in a much better place. It's a lot healthier. It's a lot less codependent. But, you know, I think that life and friendship and the bonds we form with people are so messy. You know, just being alive, like being a human, is so messy. And so I kind of wanted to explore what that was, you know, this deep bond between these women that isn't always great, you know, that they need to actually work on, just like we need to work on our friendships in real life. So that was kind of like the genesis of that. And, you know, initially, like, I've said this before, but I wish it had like a more noble story for like, why are these main characters Asian American? But it was really because I had written something before, my novella, One Kind Glory, which was, you know, a little serialized story online. And then it was a little collected novella. And in that, the main character, you know, she's kind of like me. She's a very snarky, like, nerd girl. And I remember when I started that story, I was like, well, what if she's just like me? Like, should she be Asian too? And then I did the thing that a lot of us do at that stage, where I immediately self-rejected. I was like, no, it can't be that, because then the whole story has to be about racism. It has to be about, you know, the struggle. Like, it has to be about all these hard things she would be going through. And I still kind of kicked myself for that, because I was still in that mindset where we're sort of seeing like a white character as the default, which is not, you know, making a character white is also a choice. But when that story started to attract fans and gain some popularity, everyone just thought she was Asian because I am. So when I started writing this series, I was like, well, I might as well do that, because everybody will think that anyway. But as I was writing it, and it was sort of like the kind of story I had enjoyed growing up, that became very empowering, just being able to write these women living their really messy lives and having a good time and falling in love. And those were all things that I really wanted to write about. And I love to write about with Asian American women at the center.
They're so good. I try to like read these. Trust me, like, they're amazing. So your next book comes out in July. It's Hollywood Heroine, right? Or
yes. Well, that's the next Heroine. I have another book that comes out before that. which we can also talk about. But yes, Hollywood Heroine is the 5th Heroine book that comes out in July. They, I think, have always come out in July. It's kind of like a nice summer blockbuster. So with this second trilogy of Heroine, you know, the first trilogy was Heroine Complex was Evie's book, Heroine Worship was Aveda's book, Heroine's Journey is Bee, who's Evie's younger sister, was her book. And then for this second trilogy, I kind of wanted to give everyone a sequel. So Haunted Heroine is, again, Evie's book, but we're many years later. It's a different stage of her life. She's dealing with some different things. And then Hollywood Heroine is Aveda's second book. So, you know, again, it's like they're all a little bit older. They're dealing with some different things. For Aveda, you know, she's such a perfectionist, and she's having a little bit of difficulty with the fact that after all these years, this demon threat that she's been fighting is still not eradicated. And in fact, it seems to keep mutating and going in different directions and giving them new challenges to fight. So there is an element of that she's really struggling with. And then the sort of framing device is their lives or adventures or whatever are being made into a TV show. So she and Evie have to go to LA, to Hollywood, to kind of observe and see what that's all about. And of course, watching their adventures come to life in that setting is very interesting.
I bet. I can't wait.
Like yes. Vampires. That's like not. I don't think we put that in any of the copy, but it's very prominent on the cover. There are vampires, and yes, there is an explanation, and I guess you'll have to read it to find out what that is.
I've pre-ordered it, so I'm super excited. And I've also pre-ordered your new book, and so tell us about that one. It's another YA one, yes?
Yes, and I actually just, like 2 minutes ago, got the arc.
Yeah.
It's called From Little Tokyo with Love. And yes, it is YA. It is romance. It's kind of a modern fairy tale, I guess. It's about a biracial, half Japanese American girl, much like myself. And she has grown up in Los Angeles, Little Tokyo neighborhood, which is a neighborhood that's very special to me. It's very vibrant. Of course, there's a lot of great food. There's a wonderful festival every summer that, of course, we cannot really have right now. But it's kind of like an epicenter of Asian American community in LA. And it was a place I always wanted to write about. And so this girl, she is a tragic orphan. She has been raised by the rest of her family in Little Tokyo. And she does not believe in fairy tales or happy endings or rom-coms or anything like that. And what I was kind of trying to dig into with that is that I think for a lot of us who have not seen ourselves a lot in media, sometimes it is hard for us to imagine a happy ending, because a lot of times, I think, especially women of color, you know, we're present in a story to kind of be tortured or to be the tool that someone uses to learn a lesson or to, you know, stand in for, you know, racial injustice or whatever it is. And that person is usually not the person who has the ending where you're wearing the big princess dress and you're like running through well, I guess you can't run through the airport anymore, but whatever the modern equivalent of that is.
Yeah.
So I wanted to write about, you know, this very cynical girl who certainly has no reason to believe in any of that. And then, of course, gets swept into this kind of, you know, modern fairy tale Cinderella story. She learns that she's actually not technically an orphan. Her mother may still be alive, and her mother may be a very famous movie star who stars in the exact kind of rom-coms that she hates. And so she kind of goes on this quest for her mother, and she's joined on that quest by a very handsome young man who is a kind of actor slash dancer. I pictured him as kind of a younger, you know, Harry Shum Jr. or something. But they go on this adventure through LA, and I really wanted to bring out the magic of LA because I love Los Angeles, and I feel like it is very maligned. It does not always have the best reputation. And so I wanted to really show how beautiful it is, how magical it is, how they're, beyond what people sort of think of. We think of like the Hollywood sign
and
and
the typical landmarks.
Drive, and like, everything they sort of show in a TV show when they're doing like establishing shots of Hollywood is like what we think of as LA. So I wanted to show some other sides of LA, like Little Tokyo, and some of the, maybe sites that people have not heard of as much. So those were kind of all things that went into that book.
Nice. I can't wait for me to get my copies and for our readers to read them, because they're just so much fun. I was just like, I'm so excited. I'm also so nervous to talk to her because I just love her books.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so they're just, I can't get enough of them. Before I let you go, is there anything else you want to talk about? I don't know if you have a newsletter or where people can find you on Instagram. I love your Instagram.
Oh, thank you. Yes, you can find me a few places. My main website, which probably needs very badly to be updated, is heroinecomplex.com. I'm on Twitter. It's just my name, Sarah Kuhn. And on Instagram, I'm Sarah Kuhn Books, because I think someone took Sarah Kuhn already and doesn't even use it, by the way. But yes, that's where I am in general, especially if I'm supposed to be doing something else. I'm probably one of those places. I also have, last year I wrote a Star Wars book. It was an audio original, so it was recorded as kind of this, audio theater almost. It was really cool. Called Dr. Aphra, and it's about a character in the Star Wars universe who has mostly been in the comic books and is very beloved and is also Asian and queer and amazing. She's a really cool, like, archaeologist adventurer type with I would say, a very kind of gray moral compass. So she's not always aligned with the heroes. In fact, in this adventure, she is actually the personal attaché to Darth Vader. So we did that as the audio original, and then they're releasing that as a hardcover in April.
Nice.
So if you want to read The Adventures of Dr. Aphra, if you want to put on like a play with your friends, and you can all find different Star Wars characters, that script has been collected in a hardcover. And
very cool.
In April, yeah.
Nice. And will there be any more continuation from The Shadow of the Batgirl?
I hope so. I love Shadow of the Batgirl, and that was our Cassandra Cain graphic novel that came out last year. The artist is the amazing Nicole Gu. And we loved that book so much. We love our editor, Sarah Miller. She was like Cass's third mother. We had a really wonderful reception. I was really happy that it seemed to resonate with both Cassandra's established fans, who are very passionate. I consider myself one of them, so I was really happy they all seemed to enjoy it. And it also seemed to win her some new fans. Like, I get really emotional when some of my friends have sent me like photos of their tiny Asian American daughters, like looking. They're like, oh, well, she can't technically read yet, but she really likes, the art. Like, the Nicole's art is so beautiful, and she's already obsessed with Batgirl, even though she can't actually read the text yet. So that's been really wonderful to see. And I don't think there are any solid plans yet, but I know that's something that both Nicole and I would love to do. So
yeah,
hopefully.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. Fingers crossed. Well, thank you.
The library, which I know is hopefully fun for librarians. I hope we show the library in a positive light.
I thought so. Yes. Yeah, it was super good. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, out of your schedule to talk with me. Love catching up, and I look forward to everything you've got coming on next. And we'll see you around.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching our BookFest Revisited series. See below for links to the author's social media pages and links to our catalog if you want to request any of their titles. Want to be notified when our newest videos come out? Click or tap on the red subscribe button. Happy reading!